That is kind of interesting because it really shows, on the part of the reviewer, complete ignorance about acting.
Paul Newman built his legend on talent and intensity. Those blue eyes, that quiet charisma, Hollywood's most respected leading man. But behind the Oscar wins and philanthropic image, there's a history of clashes, tensions, and rivalries that reveal a different side of the golden boy everyone thought they knew. Ava Gardner.
She's been patient beyond belief and supportive, and she doesn't buy jewelry, she doesn't buy dresses, she buys insurance.
Paul Newman was Hollywood royalty by 1972, an established star with critical acclaim and box office power. Ava Gardner was a legend from an earlier era, still beautiful, still commanding, still capable of destruction when she felt disrespected. The life and times of Judge Roy Bean brought them together. It should have been a meeting of icons. Instead, it became a study in mutual disdain disguised as professionalism. Gardner's role was limited. She appeared briefly as Lily Langtry, the woman Judge Roy Bean obsessed over. The part didn't match her stature. She knew it, everyone knew it, and she blamed Newman for it. Gardner publicly despised Newman after the film. She called him an egomaniac in interviews. She said he was false and on all the time. She accused him of performing even when cameras weren't rolling. For Gardner, authenticity mattered. Newman's calculated image felt like a betrayal of what acting should be. Newman found Gardner difficult on set. Her alcohol issues were known throughout Hollywood. Her short fuse made simple scenes complicated. She showed up late. She forgot lines. She brought chaos to a production that Newman wanted controlled and efficient. The tension was mutual, but expressed differently. Gardner attacked Newman publicly. She didn't care about burning bridges or protecting professional relationships. She was at a point in her career where honesty felt more important than politics. Newman stayed professional. He didn't respond to her criticisms. He didn't trash her in interviews, but people on set knew he struggled with her presence. Every scene with Gardner required patience. Every interaction demanded careful management of her mood. The feud often gets flipped in Hollywood lists. Some versions frame it as Gardner hating Newman, while he remained neutral. Others suggest Newman quietly resented her, but maintained appearances. The truth is both disliked working with each other. Gardner just said it out loud. Years later, Newman never addressed the Gardner situation directly. He moved past Judge Roy Bean without looking back. Gardner continued calling out people she'd worked with until she died. Newman made her list. That says everything about how their brief collaboration ended. Gardner's public hatred was explosive but brief. Newman's next tension involved ego clashes within his own acting circle. Anthony Franciosa.
It's your friends who always send you the bad reviews. They always call you up and say, did you read that? And then they read it to you over the phone, which is a bit of a drag.
The Actors Studio produced Titans. Marlon Brando, James Dean, Paul Newman, Anthony Franciosa. They shared training, they shared technique, but sharing method acting approaches didn't guarantee friendship. Sometimes it guaranteed competition. The long, hot summer brought Newman and Franciosa together under Orson Welles' shadow. Franciosa was talented and hungry. He'd won a Tony Award. He had film roles. He believed he deserved the same level of stardom Newman was achieving. Newman found intense method peers frustrating when they disrupted flow. Franciosa embodied that frustration. He questioned everything. He needed motivation explained. He pushed scenes past their natural ending point because he hadn't fully explored his character's psychology. The clash was about process. Newman valued efficiency. He prepared thoroughly before arriving on set. Once cameras rolled, he wanted to execute and move forward. Franciosa treated every take as a new opportunity for discovery. That approach slowed production and annoyed his co-stars. Underlying their professional differences was something deeper. Both men were competing for the same space in Hollywood. The sensitive leading man with dramatic range. The method actor who could carry serious films. Only one would achieve lasting superstardom. They both knew it. Franciosa's career never reached Newman's heights. He worked consistently, but never became a household name. The long hot summer represented a moment when they were equals. After that, the gap widened. That gap bred resentment. Newman rarely spoke about Franciosa in interviews. When asked about fellow actors' studio members, he mentioned Brando and Dean. He praised their talent. Franciosa didn't make those lists. The omission was telling. Newman didn't need to criticize him. Silence accomplished the same goal. The tension between them reflected larger issues within method acting culture. Everyone claimed to value truthfulness and emotional honesty, but everyone also wanted to be the star. Those desires conflicted, and when they conflicted, friendships suffered. Franciosa represented internal competition within Newman's acting community. Newman's next clash involved a director whose tyrannical style pushed Newman to rebellion. Otto Preminger.
You know, a lot of them try to hide under Gentile names. But one look at that face, you just know.
A little experience, you can even smell them.
Otto Preminger directed with an iron fist. He screamed, he belittled, he demanded absolute obedience. For actors trained in collaboration and exploration, his approach felt fascist. Paul Newman called him exactly that. On the set of Exodus, Newman called Preminger a fascist asshole. He said it loud enough for crew to hear. He wanted Preminger to know exactly what he thought. The director's tyrannical style violated everything Newman believed about filmmaking. Preminger treated actors like props. He didn't care about their process or their emotional preparation. He cared about hitting marks and delivering lines exactly as written. For Newman, who needed to understand character motivation, this was torture. The tension escalated throughout production. Newman pushed back against Preminger's demands. He questioned directions. He suggested alternatives. Preminger shut him down every time. The director's ego couldn't tolerate dissent from actors. Then Newman pulled a prank. During a stunt sequence, he faked his death. He lay motionless while crew panicked. Preminger rushed over, genuinely worried that his star had been killed. When Newman opened his eyes and smiled, Preminger exploded with rage. The prank was Newman's way of regaining power. Preminger controlled everything on set, but Newman showed that he could still create chaos. He could still disrupt the tyrannical order. The message was clear: push me too far, and I'll push back harder. Exodus was a success, despite the tensions. Newman's performance was praised. Preminger's direction earned recognition, but Newman never worked with him again. When asked about directors he respected, Preminger's name never came up. The experience taught Newman about standing up to authority. Hollywood had plenty of dictatorial directors. Newman learned to identify them early and avoid projects where they held control. Exodus was a lesson learned through suffering. Preminger was openly tyrannical. Newman's next director was subtly dismissive in ways that cut deeper. Alfred Hitchcock.
Audiences' tastes are so whimsical now, so capricious, really, and so are the critics, that it's, I certainly don't pay very much attention to my position on that list.
Alfred Hitchcock was a legend, the master of suspense, a director who'd created some of cinema's most iconic moments. Paul Newman was a star at the height of his powers. Their collaboration on Torn Curtain should have been historic. Instead, it became a masterclass in incompatibility. Newman approached roles through method acting. He asked questions about motivation. He needed to understand why his character made specific choices. For Newman, this wasn't difficult behavior. This was craft. This was how he prepared to deliver authentic performances. Hitchcock had no patience for it. When Newman asked about his character's motivation in a scene, Hitchcock gave his infamous response: "Your motivation is your salary." The dismissal was complete. The contempt was obvious. Newman was stunned. He'd worked with directors who challenged him, but he'd never encountered someone who fundamentally rejected his entire approach to acting. Hitchcock saw actors as pieces in his visual puzzle. Newman saw acting as psychological exploration. The clash was philosophical. Hitchcock came from a generation where actors followed directions without question. Newman represented a new wave, where actors contributed creatively. Neither man was willing to compromise their approach. The shoot became frustrating for Newman. Every attempt to engage creatively was shut down. Hitchcock had storyboarded everything. He knew exactly what he wanted. Newman's input wasn't requested or welcomed. He felt reduced to a handsome face hitting marks. Newman later called the experience one of his most disappointing. He respected Hitchcock's body of work, but working with him revealed the man didn't respect actors as collaborators. For Newman, that made the entire process feel hollow. Torn Curtain received mixed reviews. Critics noted the lack of chemistry between Newman and co-star Julie Andrews. The performances felt stiff. The film lacked the electric energy of Hitchcock's best work. The behind-the-scenes tension seeped into the final product. Newman never worked with Hitchcock again. When discussing career regrets in interviews, Torn Curtain came up frequently, not because the film failed, because the experience taught him that legendary directors don't automatically make great collaborators. Hitchcock dismissed Newman's process entirely. Newman's next tension involved someone who understood his process, but drove him crazy anyway. Robert Redford.
The studio did not want me. They tried everything to really keep me from being in the film because they felt that and they were right, that I was not of an equal stature to Paul Newman, and they were right about that.
Paul Newman and Robert Redford became one of cinema's greatest duos. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid was magic, and The Sting proved it wasn't an accident. On screen, their chemistry was effortless. Off screen, Newman often wanted to strangle Redford. The problem was Redford's legendary lateness. He didn't arrive a few minutes late, he arrived hours late. Newman prized professionalism and efficiency. Redford prized perfection and refused to rush his preparation. Sets were ready. Newman was ready. Redford was missing. When he finally arrived, Redford was charming and apologetic, treating lateness like a personality quirk. His perfectionism showed in rehearsals, too. He questioned everything and pushed for extra takes. To Newman, it felt less like dedication and more like insecurity wearing a serious face. During The Sting, the tensions built. They'd been through this before. Newman hoped Redford had learned. He hadn't. The same patterns repeated: late arrivals, endless perfectionism. Newman's frustration became visible to cast and crew, but here's the complicated part. The annoyances made their performances better. The slight edge in Newman's delivery when he looked at Redford on screen came from real frustration. The dynamic between them crackled because authentic tension existed underneath the scripted banter. They became close friends, despite the onset irritations, or maybe because of them. Newman respected Redford's talent, even when he hated his process. Redford admired Newman's professionalism, even though it made him feel judged. The love-hate dynamic was genuine. Newman joked about Redford's lateness in interviews years later. He framed it as endearing, but people who worked with both men knew the jokes carried weight. Newman genuinely struggled with Redford's working style. He just valued the friendship and the results enough to tolerate it. Redford annoyed Newman, but they remained friends. Newman's next conflict involved an actor whose approach to sharing screen time infuriated him: Orson Welles. Orson Welles was a genius, and everyone knew it. By 25, he had changed cinema forever with Citizen Kane. He was brilliant, imposing, and famously difficult. That reputation followed him onto The Long, Hot Summer, where Paul Newman found him frustrating to work with. Newman came from the Actors Studio, a tradition built on collaboration. Actors explored scenes together, asked questions about motivation, and shared emotional space. Welles came from theater and radio, where authority flowed from the top and control mattered more than collaboration. Their styles clashed almost immediately. Newman later described Welles as standoffish and uneasy around method actors, whom Welles saw as self-indulgent. Newman, in turn, felt dismissed, but his deeper complaint was about what he called screen generosity. In film, generous actors share focus, allowing their scene partners moments to shine. Great scenes depend on balance. According to Newman, Welles lacked this instinct. He stretched his lines, controlled his timing, and positioned himself to dominate the frame, keeping the camera's attention on him. Newman respected Welles's talent, but found the experience discouraging. The tension was professional, not personal. Newman admired the genius, but disliked the process. The lesson stayed with him. Later in his career, Newman made a point of giving younger actors space, determined not to become the kind of legend who forgot how to share the screen. Welles hogged the spotlight professionally. Newman's next tension involved someone whose energy overwhelmed him personally: Tom Cruise.
Okay, how about I win no money, you win, I'll throw you 20.
Paul Newman mentored Tom Cruise on The Color of Money. Newman reprised his role as Fast Eddie Felson from The Hustler. Cruise played the young hustler Vincent Loria. The dynamic worked on screen. Behind the scenes, Newman found Cruise's intensity exhausting. Cruise was boundless energy. He arrived on set hours early. He stayed late. He asked questions constantly. He wanted to rehearse endlessly. He approached every scene like it was the most important moment in cinema history.
Paul Newman teaching you something very specific on The Color of Money.
I remember we were doing Color Money, and I went actually from Top Gun to Color Money, and we were shooting Color Money in Chicago. But I don't know if you've been to, do you ever do a show in Chicago?
Newman was in his 60s. He'd been acting for decades. He had a laid-back style that prioritized efficiency, show up prepared, execute professionally, go home. Cruise's approach felt like performance, even when cameras weren't rolling. The generational gap complicated things. Cruise represented a new breed of actor, the perfectionist who needed total control. Newman came from an era where actors trusted directors and conserved energy between takes. Their rhythms didn't match. Newman reportedly found Cruise overwhelming. The constant motion, the relentless enthusiasm, the inability to just sit quietly and be present. For Newman, who valued stillness and contemplation, Cruise's energy felt invasive. But Newman also recognized Cruise's talent. The kid was dedicated. He worked harder than anyone. He delivered in every take. Newman couldn't fault the results, even when the process drove him crazy.
Worked very hard, but definitely I was fortunate to be able to work with great artists that were very generous with me, from film directors to actors, the Duvall, Hackman, Newman. But just to be able to watch them work on set, every day I was there.
Some lists exaggerate this into active dislike. The reality was more nuanced. Newman was tired of babysitting young stars. He'd done his mentoring. He'd passed along wisdom. Now, he wanted to work with people who understood the craft without constant hand-holding. Cruise idolized Newman. He spoke glowingly about the experience in interviews. He probably never realized his energy bothered his co-star. Newman was too professional to say anything. He channeled the frustration into Fast Eddie's weary patience with Vincent. The Color of Money won Newman his only competitive Oscar. Cruise's performance was praised. The film succeeded, but Newman avoided working with high-energy young actors afterward. One Cruise was enough. Cruise's intensity was overwhelming but manageable. Newman's most legendary hatred involved a rivalry that defined both careers. Steve McQueen.
A genre film of sappy language and cigarette butts hanging out of the corner of your mouth.
Before the towering inferno, Paul Newman and Steve McQueen circled each other like predators. Both were massive stars. Both represented cool masculinity. Both wanted to be the biggest name in Hollywood. Only one could occupy that space. McQueen resented Newman's prestige. Newman had critical respect and Oscar nominations. McQueen was the box office king, but lacked the artistic recognition. The difference ate at him. When the towering inferno brought them together, McQueen's insecurities exploded. The billing negotiation was legendary. McQueen obsessed over equal treatment. He demanded the same number of lines as Newman. When he discovered Newman had 12 more lines, he demanded they be added to his role. He got them. Then he demanded the final line of the film. He got that too. The top billing issue required creative solution. Neither would accept second position. The solution was staggered billing. Newman's name appeared first on the left. McQueen's appeared first on the right. They measured the placement with rulers to ensure exact equality. Newman called McQueen chicken shit privately. He couldn't believe the pettiness, the obsession with counting lines and measuring billing placement. For Newman, the work mattered, the performance mattered. The ego games felt juvenile. McQueen had missed out on Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid years earlier. Newman got that iconic role and the partnership with Redford. McQueen never forgot. The towering inferno was his chance to finally share the screen with Newman, and he turned it into a competition. Newman described the set as like going to the dentist. Every day required navigating McQueen's ego. Every scene involved worrying about screen time balance. The focus shifted from making a great film to managing McQueen's insecurities. Their rivalry stretched back years. Industry parties where they avoided each other. award shows where the tension was obvious, racing circuits where they competed in cars instead of on screen. The hatred was mutual and deep. The towering inferno was a massive success despite the behind-the-scenes warfare. Both actors delivered strong performances. The disaster film became a classic of the genre, but Newman and McQueen never worked together again. Once was more than enough. Years later, after McQueen's death, Newman softened slightly. He acknowledged McQueen's talent. He admitted the rivalry pushed both of them to work harder, but he never said he enjoyed the experience. He never pretended they were friends. The McQueen feud remains Newman's most documented and explosive conflict. Two legends who couldn't stand each other, forced to collaborate for commercial reasons. The result was professional success and personal misery. Paul Newman's conflicts reveal a man who valued professionalism and generosity. He clashed with tyrants, scene stealers, and insecure rivals. Some wounds healed, others defined careers. But through it all, he remained Hollywood's most respected leading man. If you want more stories about legendary celebrity feuds, subscribe now.